Hello there, thrill seekers. Yesterday I watched a video called Quantum Mysticism is Stupid, and it's on a channel called Professor Dave Explains. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'll try to leave a link below, or if you're watching on Patreon, I'll try to leave a link below so you can find it. But anyway, if you Google it or whatever, you search it on YouTube, you'll find it. Quantum Mysticism is Stupid. And the reason I watched it is because I did a review last week on this book, Grand Biocentric Design, which, if you'll remember from the review, is one of those books that sort of connects philosophically this idea that quantum physics has discovered a lot of interesting stuff about the interaction of consciousness and matter, and how it might relate to certain philosophies like Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta, although this book does not mention Buddhism at all, and I don't think it even mentions Advaita Vedanta, but the video was interesting, although way too long. But this guy has 1.36 million subscribers, and the video's got 180,000 views, which is about 179,000 views more than this video will get. So he must be smarter than me, and I took a look at the video, and here are my findings. The way he defines quantum mysticism is that he says that the quantum mystics, these people who try to combine quantum physics with mysticism, they say his version of what they say is quantum physics is confusing, so it's magic. Therefore, if magic can be framed using the terminology of quantum physics, then magic is real. He complains that the public is only interested in the frontiers of science and never makes the effort to learn the basics. So they get really interested in cutting-edge quantum physics, but they don't understand the basics of algebra in order to kind of work out the math and make sense out of what they're seeing, which I think is a legitimate complaint. He disparages the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, which I disparage as well. I watched it years ago, but that's kind of dumb. He says the dangers of quantum mysticism is that people will buy whimsical books, which I like people buying whimsical books, but that's fine with me. Attend expensive seminars, forego medical treatment, and go to faith healers and gurus instead, and even join cults. So he's seeing this kind of grave danger in the people who take this idea to the extreme, and that seems to be his main point, his main sort of driving force for the agitation that he gets into, because he seems to get more and more agitated as the video goes along, is the idea that people might join cults and forego medical treatment and stuff. And I'm thinking, well, maybe does he know somebody who did that or something like that? I don't know. Seems like a personal thing to him. But, those are not great things to do. So let's just continue on. He says one of the main problems in the whole quantum mysticism thing is their misconception of energy. So he says, what is energy? And he goes on this whole rigmarole where he teases you out for a long time before he finally gets to the answer. And he says that in scientific terms, energy is defined as the capacity to do work and nothing more. But then he says something really interesting. He says that the famous formula by Albert Einstein, E equals mc squared, means that matter is a form of energy, but it does not mean that there is a magical spiritual world or that you can heal yourself with your mind. And energy is not an object or a substance. But I think he's missing the point here, because if matter is a form of energy, that's pretty weird. And I've always thought, ever since I learned that in high school or grade school or whenever, that's really weird, that matter is a form of energy. And it does kind of point to something much more interesting than the sort of physicalist view of the universe would have you believe. He complains about energy being called good energy when there's positive and negative energy, and positive energy doesn't mean good energy, and it kind of like that's a pointless rant I think he goes on. He singles out Deepak Chopra for writing a book called Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, The Quantum Alternative to Growing Old, and a book called Spontaneous Fulfillment of Desire. I don't know much about Deepak Chopra. I just know that I'm not a big fan of his, except that I saw a little bit of the biopic that his son did that I thought was kind of interesting. But, I don't put much stock in Deepak Chopra. He doesn't like Deepak Chopra's idea that consciousness creates reality, which he seems to equate with Deepak Chopra, but that's not really Deepak Chopra's idea. Deepak Chopra got that from the Advaita Vedanta tradition. The Zen tradition doesn't exactly say consciousness creates reality, but it does place consciousness at a higher sort of level than the physicalist view of the universe would. So, it's kind of there sort of in Buddhism as well. We could go on, I've probably gone on for hours and hours on this channel about that, but, whatever. He says one of the big problems is the misinterpretation of the double-slit experiment. And if you don't know what the double-slit experiment is, I can't possibly explain it to you here because I don't understand it that well myself. But it's one thing that gets referenced in Grand Biocentric Design. It gets referenced in all these books, and it's about how energy, or I guess photons, either photons or any other form of energy, are either a wave or a particle, and when you measure them, they seem to change. And then people say, well, when you observe them, they change. But he points out that it's not the act of observing them. Like, you can't just look at a photon. You can't just go, oh, there's a photon right there. It's going over there. You can't. You have to do a process which adds energy into the system, and that disturbs the photon, and that's what makes it change. And that it's not so, this wave and particle dichotomy is not so mysterious as it sounds. And this idea that consciousness is, he's sort of trying to poke holes in the idea that consciousness plays a role in physical reality by saying that. But it ignores the fact that, okay, yeah, maybe we're all dummies in interpreting the double-slit experiment wrongly, but there are a lot of people who understand the double-slit experiment very well who also say that it's very mysterious, and also say that it does kind of indicate consciousness plays a role in physical reality that we have not understood very much yet. So I don't think, I mean, I think it's good that he points out why we get it wrong, but I think he's going a little too far to kind of toss the whole thing out. Another thing he talks about is the misuse of the word quantum, and this does kind of bug me, because when I understood the definition of quantum, which was a long time ago, I got this idea that why people say quantum all the time, because it doesn't really mean what they think it means. It means the minimal amount of any physical entity involved in an interaction. For example, photons are a quanta. A photon is the smallest amount of light there can be. The point of doing a little response video to this guy's video is it points out the danger of relying too heavily on stuff like this. So if your chances of becoming involved in Buddhism, or if you're going to get involved in Buddhism, or you're going to try to recruit other people to get involved in Buddhism or Advaita Vedanta or whatever, based on the idea, look, quantum physics says it's true, the double-slit experiment says it's true, so you should get interested in Buddhism. That's a losing battle, because there's always somebody out there who understands quantum physics a lot better, who can say, yeah, that's not the right interpretation of quantum physics, and you're a dummy. And this is why I said in that last video that the whole kind of reliance on stuff like this by some people in the field of Eastern religions is a little bit like when that guy in where was he, North Kentucky, built the dinosaur museum that proves that dinosaurs lived alongside Noah's Ark. I think it's called the Creation Museum or something like that. And trying to bolster your religion through science, and usually through a really distorted and bad understanding of science. The way that guy in Kentucky understands evolution is way off base, and fossils and stuff like that, he doesn't get it at all. So you get stuff like that. So this is why whenever, sorry, my sleeve keeps coming unrolled. There was a lady who was complaining about the fact that I stopped the video yesterday to show you the UFO, and she was saying, I didn't watch the rest of it. She complained in the comments. And, well, if you want me to stop showing you an alien invasion force on its way to Earth, well, forget it. I'm going to show you, but I don't have one today. All I see is like some plane trails up in the air. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. And what was I saying? Oh, anyway, if you're relying on that stuff as a bolster, you're gonna lose out, and I don't think it's really that important. One of the questions I'm gonna have to answer tomorrow when I do my corporate gig is science compatible with religion? And let me see if I can make the shortest version I can of that sort of answer. The reason we make a big distinction between science and religion in the West is because we had to, because the West wanted to progress in this, in science, had made all these scientific discoveries and wanted to put them into practical use in everyday lives and improve people's lives. But here was the church over there saying, no, we have an interpretation of this stuff and we're going to fight you, and they held back all sorts of progress. And the solution that we came to in Western society was to separate the two, to make an absolute distinction and say this is religion, this is science. And it happened sometime in the Middle Ages, around the Renaissance and all that stuff. Maybe that's what really sparked off the Renaissance, was the ability to say that science and religion were two different areas and we don't have to mix them up. And so we made that heavy distinction. Before that, even in Western philosophy and proto-science, there wasn't that big of a distinction between what were matters of religion and what were matters of science. In the East, over in Asia and China, Japan, India, places like that, that problem never really arose, or if it did, it never got as bad as it did with the Catholic Church, putting down Copernicus and all that stuff, and so it wasn't necessary to make that distinction, and it still hasn't been seen to be necessary. I don't think people who've grown up in that milieu of Buddhism and Hinduism see such a strong need to make a huge distinction between science and religion. I liked Buddhism when it was first introduced to me because it didn't have a battle with science. The religions I had looked into before that, particularly sort of Protestant Christianity as practiced in rural Ohio and the Hare Krishna movement, both had strong disagreements with science. So it was important for them, the preachers that I looked at in Ohio and the Hare Krishna guys that I looked at also in Ohio, it was important to them to defeat science and try to prove that science was wrong. So they were always throwing stuff in there to try to prove science was wrong. And I thought, well, this is stupid. Proving science is wrong is a losing battle because it's right in so many areas. But there are areas where the physicalist view of the universe just can't get. I think what will happen in the future is that because of the way physics is going and so forth and so on, we're going to have more of an easier time between science and religion, and that they won't have to be at loggerheads quite as much as they used to, and we'll probably find a lot of things that were originally considered to be purely religious matters are starting to have kind of scientific answers, maybe not answers, but at least scientific kind of rationale and explanation, and maybe vice versa, that some of the things, I don't know where I was going with that, but I think maybe it'll become less of a problem. That's my point. So anyway, that's what I got to say. I don't know if I made my point or not. I just think, yeah, quantum mysticism is probably stupid, but I don't think it's actually totally stupid to look into what contemporary physics has to say about matters of how consciousness interacts with matter and so forth. I think those things are interesting, but I don't think we should be too reliant on that stuff, as if that's going to be the way we're going to prove that we're right, is by hey, look, the scientists say we're right, because I think maybe that's just I don't want to go there. That's it. I don't want to go there. So anyway, if you want to donate to me not going there, you can donate using the URL you're seeing below. That is my only way, or pretty much my only way, of making a living. Like I say, I'm getting paid for the corporate gig tomorrow, but those things are few and far between. I actually got 2 this year, which is real unusual. I can go for years and years without any corporate gigs, but those are the only gigs I got paid for in the entire year, were 2. So thank you for continuing to support me. If you're having financial trouble, though, please don't support me, because there are enough people doing $1 and $5 $5 donations every month that I can make a living, and that really helps. But those of you who are donating are my life support, so I thank you very much. See you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Dee, are you a quantum doggy? Are you a quantum doggy? Hey, quantum doggy, where are you going? Oh. You don't want to be asked that question. All right.